Today I'm going to show you 4 different chord shapes that I use on a daily basis to better navigate the neck of the guitar. Now, forewarning, these do involve bar chords, so consider yourself warned. Those of you who are bold and courageous of spirit, do stay tuned for the video. So each one of these chord shapes is derived from the cage system, which if you're unfamiliar with caged, basically what it means is we're taking the acronym C-A-G-E-D and we're making a type of C chord, a type of A chord, a type of G, a type of E, a type of D, okay? And if you're a beginner, you may have learned all of those open chord shapes on the bottom of the neck, right down here in the first 3 frets. That's really common for beginners to kind of start learning those first open shapes. But when we take the cage system, what we're doing is we're modifying those same open shapes, C-A-G-E-D, and we're adding a bar into those shapes. And what this allows us to do is take those familiar chord shapes, modify them slightly, and basically move up the neck of the guitar. So we can modulate between keys using chord shapes that we're familiar with. And this kind of eliminates the need for a capo in a lot of cases, and it just helps us to better learn the neck of the guitar, both in our chords and in our improvising in scales. Now, what I've found as a full-time guitar teacher, I've taught so many hundreds and now thousands of students. And one of the things that's really common that I've seen in the intermediate stage of players is I've got a lot of people coming in that they know how to bar, but they only know like 2, maybe 3 of the common shapes, okay? Namely, they know what we refer to as the E shape from caged, the E in caged, and that gives us, full command of the low string as we kind of move up the neck. We can make major chords in E shape and their counterpoint, E minor shapes. So we can have that F chord right here at the first fret, F minor. Or they may know the A shape, which is really common as well. So they'll know how to play like maybe a C chord in A shape, and it kind of looks like this little A chord that a lot of beginners will learn, okay? So they'll know C in A shape or C minor, and of course you can take that all the way up and down the neck. And while that's helpful, and it does help you start learning the E and A string, it's not complete. We have a lot of other shapes that we can utilize. So my goal is to work with intermediates to really kind of expand their knowledge of the fretboard. And so one of the best ways to do that is starting in cage, to be able to learn their way up and down the neck. I'm going to highlight one particular way, if you haven't learned the cage system, that I use a couple of the different chord shapes within caged to accomplish a less movement prone progression. What happens, I think, with intermediates is they get so fixated on these 2 bar chord shapes that they know. Like myself early on, they'll just be taking that shape and sliding it up and down the neck of the guitar. And you accompany that with a lot of squeakage as you kind of move, if you're not learning to kind of deaden the strings as you move up and down the neck. But also, too, it means a lot of movement. Yes, we save some movement in that we have like one shape that we're kind of using to slide back and forth. But it's not as beneficial as taking some of those same chord shapes that we have from the cage system and using more of them to accomplish the same chord movements in a smaller amount of space. So let me show you that here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the key of C, and we're going to start by using the G shape in caged. I'm going to follow through with some of the fingering as I kind of go here too. So let's dive in. Here's our G shape. And we're using this for our C chord, okay? And we're putting our pinky on the low E, so 6th string at the 8th fret. That's gonna be our root, that's the C note. We're gonna put our ring finger at the 7th fret of the A string, our 5th string. And we're gonna bar with our index finger down to the 5th string. Now you could technically bar as low as the 6th. You could also, if you're just trying to meet the kind of requisites for the notes in this chord shape, you could technically just bar down to the 4th string. But I like using the bar to the 5th string, mainly because I like to use that hammer on right here with my ring finger. I can hammer on and pull off right on that ring finger. So that's kind of a nice thing that you can do if you do bar as low as the A string. Okay, so this is the chord shape. Again, it's C chord in G shape. You can kind of see this open G kind of chord right here that you kind of learn a lot when you start learning the guitar. A lot of people will learn this one. So that's the first chord in the progression. We know that as our 1 chord or our tonic in the major key. Okay, let's move to the 4 chord. Okay, this is really cool because it's super adjacent to this chord shape, the G shape. And let's move to the F chord. So this is our 4 chord from the key of C. We're moving visually downward as we ascend in pitch. And we're putting our pinky and ring finger in the same frets, and our bar is in the same fret. Really, really cool there because there's so little movement, right? Now, our pinky, again, is in the 8th fret on the 5th string. The A, that's our F root. Ring finger is on the 7th fret of the D string. That's our A note in the chord, our 3rd. And our bar is tackling the same fret, the 5th fret, and we're barring to the 4th string, the D string, and that is going to be holding that bar so that if we want to do a hammer on again in that shape, we can do that right there, which I love to be able to kind of add that in. Just makes a little bit more flavor kind of happen there. So the last finger in here that we'll need for this shape to be complete is our middle finger on the 6th fret of the B string. That makes our F note right there. It's also cool, worthwhile mentioning while we're here as well, is if you take off that middle finger right there, that actually gives us our 7th, the E, which is right here on the 5th fret of the 2nd string inside of our bar. So if you want to use that F major 7th chord in the key, that's a really cool kind of flavor you can add in from C to F major 7th. Okay, that's really cool. But let's take it a step further here. What if we want to add the 6 minor, our most prevalent relative minor for the key? Well, we can do that just by using, again, a chord shape that a lot of intermediate students might know right off the bat. Okay, this is probably the most common bar chord. This is your E-shaped bar chord, and we're just building an A minor chord right here at the 5th fret. Again, you can kind of see this A minor in E shape kind of just looks like an E minor, low on the neck, that you probably have learned by this point if you're an intermediate. It's one of the first beginner chords that most guitar teachers teach, that you would learn on your own. So there's your minor for the key. So we've got C in G shape, F or F major 7th, in C shape. You can again see that kind of little C chord right in here, just like low on the neck. And then we've got our A minor in E shape. There's that little E minor. The last chord in this progression is the 5 chord, which is the G. Okay, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use probably my least favorite if we're talking the full extent of the D shape and cage here, the D shape. You can kind of see this little D form of a D chord here. But most people I've found don't actually use the entirety of this D shape. Some do, you know, especially if you have really long fingers like an Eric Johnson or John Mayer, etc. But I myself typically don't use it fully a whole lot. I found most guitar players don't. We either use, if you're playing more lead kind of work, we use just the D in an inversion form without the bass note right here. Or if you wanted minor, right there. You can see a little D chord or D minor. And that's super helpful. You know, especially when you're looking for just the treble strings of the guitar. But if we wanted to kind of get this to match these kind of other chords within this progression, that's not really going to work so well, because you can see going from here to, it's just a huge jump in terms of bass note there. So what we do instead is I'm going to use it in power chord form. This is something a lot of rhythm guitar players playing lead, you know, lead and rhythm or swapping between the two will kind of do. Is they'll play that D shape in power chord form and they're just not playing the 3rd of the chord right here. gives you a little bit more meat to the chord. But what I'm going to do is take it one step further. I'll show you the fingering in a second, but I'm going to take it one step further by taking this G root note and just moving it to the 5th string to create a D note, which is the 5th of a G chord. So again, it's still a power chord. It's still a G5 power chord, but instead of playing the root of G at the 4th string of the 5th fret, you're gonna play the root as the D note. So it's like a G5 over D, basically. And this kind of better fits in with these other chords in the progression. So your index finger is basically barring 5th fret to the 5th string, the A string. So 5 on 5. And that's our D note. This is basically the root here. And then I'm putting my ring finger on the 7th fret of the G string, which is 3rd string. Pinky is filling in that final octave here, octave G, which is at the 8th fret of the 2nd string. Sounds like this, okay? You'll notice a lot of times too, when I play these style chords, my middle finger is just like sitting right on the low E, and I'm not actually playing that. I remember growing up and seeing other guitar players kind of using, you know, a kind of extra finger to kind of deaden out strings, and I of course thought that they were actually playing something, because from the front, it does look like you're actually playing the note. But if you were to look at it from the side and be able to kind of see it from my perspective here, I'm really just barely touching that string. It's just barely sitting on it, and it's just deadening out that note. So when I strum across, you're not hearing this note throughout, okay? So those are the 4 shapes, and when you put them together, again, C in G shape, F in C shape, A minor in E shape, and our G5 power chord in D shape. Super useful, very little movement, and it gives us the option to then be able to move up and down the neck. Because right now I'm in key of C, but I could easily take these shapes and move up to a higher key. For instance, let's go to the key of D. And it'd be kind of like we just basically took a capo and we just moved everything right on up. But we're using, of course, our index finger as the capo and it's barring our strings. So now we're in the key of D. I'm up at the 10th fret. You can see we are 2 frets away from the 12th fret E, just right here with our 2 dots. And so I'm on a D chord when I make that G shape. Super cool. So super movable. We were here at C, now we're here in key of D. So now I've got my 1 chord again, the D, and I can take that and I can go to the G chord, or as you just heard, G major 7th right there, which is again the 4 chord in the key of D. I could get my B minor chord at the 7th fret right here in E minor shape, and then I could do that same now A5 power chord right here with an E as the bass, so A5 over E, right there to fill in the 5 chord of the key. So super cool. Okay, and we could of course move that wherever we really needed on the neck of the guitar. One more thing that's really cool is of course right here, it's not just our chords that are moving, but our scale shape. So I could take right here, there is D major scale, right inside those same boxes that we've been using for chords. Probably one of the first, scale shapes most beginners learn is the minor pentatonic. Right here, B minor pentatonic. So if I'm playing along here in the key of D, you can kind of see if I'm moving through here, I can fill in some of the notes from the scale. Super cool. So you can start adding melodies into your playing and just start spicing it up with little licks right from either of those kind of scale modes right here. Again, you kind of have access to 2 of your different scale modes, right? Ionian right there, and Aeolian, which is the minor, right right? Super cool, super useful to have both of those. And it gives you one kind of set of chords that you can kind of utilize in various orders, right? Whether you need your 1, your 4, your 6, your 5, or whether you need 6, 1, 4, 5. You know, you can switch the order around quite easily within those shapes without having to move a whole lot. So super useful shapes. I hope that you gain some value in this. If you haven't learned all those chords in your cage system, it's a really good practice to kind of learn that. I'm going to include some exercises that you can use within these chord shapes. If you just look at the link in the description, these will be in Guitar Pro format and PDF. If you're not using Guitar Pro, I would really highly recommend it. It's an incredible tool for just being able to practice and learn different parts. And it's kind of the standard for guitar notation and tabbing these days. So definitely check out that link in the description. There'll be some exercise and helpful things that you can do there. And if you enjoyed this video at all, please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can stay tuned for more content just like this. On this channel, I love to do some different kind of lesson style, exercises. And I do tons of guitar reviews and guitar shootouts between, popular guitar models. So definitely stay tuned for that. We'll be diving into a whole lot more content in the near future. So thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.